Welcome back, my magical friends. Brightwolf here. So we made to episode 2 of Brightwolf's Corner, and I wanted to share more about my spiritual journey. So sit back, relax, have a glass of wine or two, or in my case Guinness, and let me tell you a bit more about, well, me. I grew up in an evangelical Christian church in Scottsdale, Arizona. As a young gay man, I felt unwelcome and unable to be my true self. As a teen, I found refuge at the Metropolitan Community Church of Phoenix, part of the UFMCC. The Universal Fellowship of Metropolitan Community Churches was founded in 1968 by Reverend Troy Perry, a pioneering LGBTQ activist and defrocked Pentecostal minister. Starting in Los Angeles, Reverend Perry created a Christian church that truly welcomed the LGBTQ community. Attending UFMCC services gave me my first taste of acceptance as a gay man exploring faith. To be honest, I found these services to be lacking in spirituality, and pickup culture was very present in the church, seriously. And I still sought a spiritual path that embraced all aspects of myself. I began taking classes on paganism and witchcraft at a local metaphysical shop called Lady Sprite's Cupboard, which taught me to honor the sacred feminine divine. The classes on Wiccan rituals, herbology, and moon magic resonated deeply. I then found myself in Maryland. It was a very spur-of-the-moment move. To be that free. There I found a shop called The Shaken Tree and began to attend classes there. Studying Southern folk magic and cunning ways with Orion Foxwood was also life-changing. Orion comes from a blended Celtic and Choctaw heritage, and his teachings integrate Native American earth wisdom with European conjure traditions. Prominent Druid author and scholar Isaac Bonewits introduced me to the rich heritage of modern Druidry. His depth of knowledge on Celtic history, magic, and ritual empowered me to embody the Druid path. But it was my time with Janet Farrar, Stuart Farrar, and Gavin Bone that truly lit my inner fire. This pioneering trio helped develop Alexandrian Wicca and authored many foundational books. I was lucky to take their workshop on traditional Wiccan rites at the Pagan Festival held at Four Quarters Farm. Nestled on 100 acres in Pennsylvania, Four Quarters has been a sanctuary for me over the years. It was at Four Quarters that I was welcomed into the Haven Communities/Coven based outside of Baltimore. During an autumn equinox ritual, our high priestess Elspeth literally stopped everything, looked at me and said, "I see the wolf in you, and you have a lunar aspect to you," and immediately went back to what she was doing as if nothing had happened. I thought about that for days, as I have always felt a deep connection to wolves, but lunar wolf just seemed so redundant. Stepping outside one full moon night, I looked up and there it was. Brightwolf, so here I sit. In that magical moment, surrounded by nature in a forest in Gaithersburg, Maryland, I fully embraced my witch name and identity as a witch. Wicca had given me the sense of belonging and reverence for the earth I had sought for so long. Now I hope to pass these spiritual gifts on to others who seek their pagan path. Let me know if you have questions, as my life is an open book. Now I would like to share a short story with you. Well, Connor will. I asked him to read it because I love his accent. Anyway, I was sitting one day at a cafe hearing a young man complaining that he and his father relocated to Arizona from someplace in Ohio, and how it was unfair to take him away from the only place he'd ever called home, and 2 weeks before he was to start his senior year of high school. I broke out my pad and pen. Yes, I still use those, and this is what came out.
Well, hello, good to see you again. Hey. Excuse me. My eyes are up here. You cheeky bastard. Now, that's better. So, Wolfie here wants me to read to you one of his stories. Well, I won't be reading it, as I know it by heart by now. He does this to me often enough. He can be a bit of an ass, but Sam and I love him to pieces. Anyway, I am here to tell you a story. So, let's do this. Tory's Heart. By our dear friend Brightwolf, or Wolfie to me. Tory sat at the edge of the river quietly watching the moon rise on the horizon. He could sense that he was not alone but did not dare to turn around. He felt a strong and warm hand on his shoulder and knew in an instant who stood behind him. I knew I could find you here, whenever I am lost and in need of your guidance. I know that it is in a place like this that I will find you, Tory spoke to his companion without turning. The hand lightly squeezed his shoulder, so full of strength yet so gentle. Then he felt the hand lift away and the presence begins to leave. Wait. He turned and watched as the god known as Pan stepped slowly away and backed into the forest. The moonlight caught a single tear running down the god's face. Where are you going? Why are you crying? When will I see you again? He watched as the god he worshipped, The only one that made him feel loved unconditionally and completely, slowly faded away. Tory. Get your ass up. Tory was startled awake from his dream. He could feel that his cheeks were wet as if he had been crying. Gee, it's Dad, just scare me to death. I am up. Well, the movers will be here in 2 hours, make sure you are ready. The disembodied voice came from the other room. Yeah. I will be. Tory sat staring at the last bit of stuff left unpacked. His altar to Pan and everything on it were his most important possessions. In his 17 years, it was in front of this altar where he could truly be himself. Tory's father had informed him that he was being stationed in Phoenix just 3 days earlier. Tory thought his life was over. A year to graduation, his friends, and most important his beloved forest and river were all going to be 3,000 miles away. Tory sat quietly on the plane. His father kept making feeble attempts to make him smile, but his heart felt broken. Surrounded by desert, no forest animals, no river. Pan is gone. He kept thinking. Days passed, and his heart felt as if it would never heal. The altarpieces he cherished so much still sitting in a box in the corner. Tory. What? I have the mid-watch tonight, so fend for yourself, will yar? Tory's father asked from the kitchen. Sure Dad, have a great and safe night. Love your pops. He exclaimed from his bedroom. Love you too, kiddo. See you tomorrow. The house felt barren, not just empty. Tory could not stand to be there alone and decided to take a walk. He grabbed his backpack and reached into the box he had yet to unpack. Slowly and deliberately, with all the reverence he had, he retrieved a small statuette of his chosen deity. Maybe if I bury you, I will be able to move on. In the kitchen, he found a half-empty bottle of Merlot and a couple of slices of pound cake. He placed both into his pack. The night was beginning to cool. One thing he would have to get used to living on the outskirts of the city is how much the temperature drops at night. It was not cold by any means, as a matter of fact it was rather comfortable. Tory had learned from Lady Sprite that all the tools needed to cast a correct circle were in his bare hand. His pointed finger to cast and energize the circle, the athame. His open palm acted as the plate, or offering dish, for his cake. Each finger represented a point of the pentacle. His cupped hand, he used as the chalice for the offering of wine to the earth and deity. After calling in the quarters, he sat and took the items from his pack. He set the statue of Pan across from him. Grabbing the wine, he poured a little into his hand and offered some to Pan, pouring a little wine over his head. Stretching his hand to his side, he offered the rest to the earth. Then he took a nice big swig for himself. Sitting quietly, he cleared his mind and began to visualize his beloved forest, river, and Pan. Standing, he turned to the moon and offered a salute. He turned back to his statue and it was no longer there. In a sheer panic, he searched around his circle, being careful not to cross it. He did not want to have to cut a door, but he could not find it. Just as he began to draw in energy to cut a door into his sacred space, he felt a presence with him. He froze, thinking a coyote had made its way in and did not want to anger or frighten it. He felt a pair of hands on his shoulders, strong and familiar yet different somehow. He slowly turned to see the vision of Pan before him. You look so different, thinner, less fur, and leaner face. What happened to you? He asked in a whisper. Two strong arms pulled him in for a tight embrace. This is a desert, I have no need for the bulk and all the fur. Whispering gently into Tory's ear. I take on the aspects of where I am and as I am with you. This is my appearance, does it not please you? Tory pulled away a little to look up at his face without leaving the embrace. No. You look great, fantastic, well, sexy. Tory blushed and hid his face. A gentle strong hand lifted his chin and again he was looking into the piercing eyes of a god. Pan lowered his head and kissed him, long and deep. They held each other tightly, it was as if they were one. I am with you always, for you have made a home for me in your heart. I am and will always be here for you. Tory had conversed with Pan on several occasions, but they had never felt sexual before tonight. The heat and smell of the desert seemed to have a very carnal effect on him. Pan lifted him into his arms and laid him on the desert floor, and Tory's heart began to race. As Pan lay next to him, his mind exploded. Tory awoke fully dressed, drenched in sweat. Though the night was cool, he was facing the statuette of Pan. Smiling to himself, he picked up the image and placed it back into his pack. Taking pieces of cake, he crumbled some and offered it to the earth and its creatures, and ate a small bit to honor his deity and circle. Standing, he dismissed the quarters and walked widishins around to carefully take down his space. Once finished, he looked up at the moon and smiled. Thank you. He walked home and straight to his room and began to reset his altar with the knowledge that Pan was not only with him, but in him as well. The end. I have always appreciated this story because it reminds us not to put out deities in a box. Well, metaphorically speaking anyway. You will be surprised how your chosen god or goddess will surprise you. Looks like my job here is done. I have a glass of wine to finish and get home to Sam before he sends out a search party. Hope to see you again. Good night now. Oh, by the way, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. I know Wolfie will appreciate it, and he really is trying to do a good thing here.
Damn it, Connor, why do you insist on making me blush? Connor's right, though it's time to put this episode to bed. Hey, comment below what you thought of my story. Also ask me anything. Who knows, I may make a questions and answers video. Again, I want to thank you for being a part of my journey. It is truly a blessing to have you here. Well, before I get all emo, a few glasses of Guinness, you know? Let me sign off. As always, live in light and love. Blessed be.